Hey guys, Odian here to do another video. This is not anything to do with Linux, but it's everything to do with DD-WRT. And this is because I run DD-WRT as my firmware for my router that I have in my house. And one of the issues I run into is I'm trying to set up a guest network, and it doesn't work when you have DHCP forwarding turned on, the standard procedures that you use to get a guest network to work. If you follow any other video on YouTube, those will normally work if you have DHCP forwarding turned off, which means that your router is doing all the DHCP settings for you versus a third-party application. So right here, as you see under the network addressing type, forwarding is turned on, which means that the router is now just an access point where everything accesses it. It gets a command that says, hey, don't go to me, go to this IP address and get your DHCP. And that's all it's doing is forwarding it. So because of that, the DHCP service is turned off natively on my router. These are the steps that I used to actually open up a guest access for my router. So it's out of my content filter, out of my firewall, and it's a non-firewalled area. And this is perfect for when you have friends come over and you want to just, give them access to your network without having access to any of your stuff. So just to give you a full explanation, that means they don't have access to your printers, to your files, to anything on your network at all. So you normally don't want to set up, let's say, your TV on the guest network unless you don't want your TV to have access to any of the goodies you have within your network. All right, that's why it's called a guest network. So let's go ahead and go under the wireless tab here. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to add an interface, and then you're going to give it whatever name. So mine is Dr. Zoidberg 24G_guest. Once you add it, you're going to see that there's an interface ID. Remember that interface ID because you're going to need it for later. After you do this piece, make sure it's enabled, and then hit Apply Settings. Once that saves, go under Wireless Security, and then under Wireless Security, change your security mode because normally it's set to disable. Change it to whichever one you want it to be, and then give it a different key. You don't want the same key because you'll have a friend that goes, hey, wait a minute, the key for your regular network's the same as your guest network. So give it something completely different. Okay? Hit Apply Settings. Now you should see it pop up as an actual Wi-Fi network that you can access, but nothing has been set up yet. Now you go under the Setup tab. From the Setup tab, you're going to go under Networking. And then from networking, you need to do this first. You're going to have to, scroll down too far. You're going to have to add a bridge. Okay? And when you add that bridge, you have to create a bridge. You're going to name that bridge BR0 is going to be your default, and your one you're making is BR1. And make sure these settings are about the same, except for this MAC address piece. That's unique. Anyways. IP address, so for my guest network, it's 192.168.99.1, and that's your subnet mask. You're going to go down to the very bottom, apply the settings. Once you apply the settings, you're going to go change your assignment for the bridge 1. So your assignment to bridge 1 will be to ath1.1, which is the assignment that I had from the previous window. After you do that, click the Add button, hit Apply Settings. You're going to come back up and you're going to see that that's been set up. Okay? Now that you've done all that, you want to scroll all the way down here. Go to the DHCPD. That's your multiple DHCP server. It should be turned off by default. You're going to assign the DHCP server 1 because 0 is turned off, which is the primary one on the actual router. DHCP 1, assign it to bridge 1, and hit Apply Settings. Once you do that, now DHCP is working. So now you should be able to get a device onto that network, but now it can't get out to the internet. How do you do that? Well, that goes with another piece of information here. Go under your administration tab and then go under your commands tab. And I'm going to copy and paste this into the description. But what you're going to do here is this allows guests to get access to the network. So it's telling it IP tables forward to the bridge and allow it to accept the TCP packets so it goes across, block access between the guest and private network. So it's saying forward it to bridge 0 to 0.1, drop it, which means that any kind of connection between 0 and 1 bridge, drop that connection, and that and bridge 1 has its own connection here. And let's see here. Next is to make sure that the internet works. This is going to be setting up everything across your first bridge, And then you're going to be setting up these pieces of information here to drop BitTorrent and peer-to-peer connections. You can choose not to use that. I just set it up because I don't want my guests coming over and just using my network as a BitTorrent area. If you decide to go with no security, you definitely want to have this because you don't want somebody like a neighbor logging in just to BitTorrent off of your connection. And then you want to block access to the router. So then you go through here and you give it denied service with the telnet, SSH, www, and HTTPS. Anytime they try to connect to the router with those connections, it will actually drop that connection so that no one from bridge 1 can get access to the router. The reason behind it is if they get access to the router, then what happens, they can then change whatever settings that you have. Now, knowing that your friends are over your house, more than likely they're not going to do anything malicious, but at the same time, you don't want it, if you don't use security, because some people make guest networks with no security, you don't want to have a neighbor come in and be able to change your settings. Now, you're going to copy and paste all this into the commands area and tell it to save firewall, and it's going to save that to the actual firewall. It's going to reboot all your settings and everything. You're going to lose connectivity for a little bit, and it's going to come back up. Now you should be able to get out to the internet, but let's do one last thing. Go into the NAT QoS, and then we're going to go under QoS. And QoS is your quality of service tab. We're going to enable it, and once you enable it, you're going to go down here, and I told anything that came across the network as a 192.168.11.1 because even though my DHCP server is 211, the address that it's coming out of is a .11 address. So that means anything coming from my firewall content through, then let that be given premium. And this was 44, so that's actually incorrect. I changed my IP address at one section. I didn't change it here, so it's a good thing I'm looking. You're going to do 192.168.99.1.24. All right. And then I'll basically delete that. Let's see, delete that. And we want to give this one bulk. All right. So what it means is premium means all the bandwidth that comes in, give it to the .11, and any runoff, give it to the 99. And then you have your max up and your max down. You can change that if you feel the need to. Here is a really good setting here. This is what you need to set for your megabits per second. So do a bandwidth test on a website, and it should tell you how much your megabits are. Take that megabit and then convert it to kbps, kilobits per second. And if you're having 600 megabits per second, it's basically 60,000. So if it's 50,000, if it's 50 megabits per second, then it's going to be 50,000. So that's pretty much how you convert it over. And once you do all that, you save and apply the settings. And after you do all those things, you're done. That's it. It's very quick, very painless. This literally took me 5 days to figure out because I couldn't figure out the firewall commands. But I'm going to put that in the description of the video. Like I said, this isn't anything to do with Linux, but I did think this was something very good to learn. So if you liked it, just let me know. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later with more Linux news you can use.